Okay, guys, I think even if there's still some people joining in a minute or two, it's probably a good time to get started. So some housekeeping stuff first. If you want to put any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. Tom, our co-founder at Tonic, is going to be keeping an eye on it, so Tom will shout at me if I need to stop at any point. Same if you're having any technical issues, please write them in the chat, because I think you'll all be on mute. So firstly, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that you've taken the time out your day. I know the day before Easter break for many, it's quite busy right now, but it's going to be fun to go through this with all of you. My name's Ruth. I'm head of content at Tonic Agency, and really that's going to be what I'm focusing on today, is using content marketing across your employee experience. So from all the way along the candidate journey and into kind of engaging with employees when they're in the business. Probably a good start for those of you that don't know Tonic Agency is just kind of take a second back and double check that you kind of know what we're all about. So I'll just take a minute on that before I get down into the detail here. So at Tonic, we're a founder-led agency. We've been working with brilliant kind of global clients around the world since 2012, and we've kind of grown a lot in that period of time. Our focus is on building brands that people want to work for. So this is really, you know, whether this is for kind of employee brand, whether this is recruitment marketing campaigns, whether this is internal comms, actually it's all kind of brand building across the way. And what we kind of stand for, I'd say we're strategically obsessed, we're kind of inspired by great and creative, we're very ambitious, we're candidate centric, results crazy, really we're brand creators. But we also work in kind of close partnership with our clients, and so that's about being strategic and making sure that that beautiful creative works. So really we're about wonderful work that works. But less about us. I want to focus on content marketing today. So really how we can use content marketing kind of along the employee experience. So like I said, whether this is upfront when you're engaging with candidates or once employees are in the business, I think content marketing has a place throughout. And it might sound funny, but I think before we go into the detail of this, it's probably good that we kind of all check in with each other and actually say, do we feel confident that we know how to describe what content marketing is? And the reason I ask is I asked this question of my colleagues here at Tonic, and there was a lot of disagreement. So is content marketing just for social media? Is content marketing you know, just blogs or just videos? Does content marketing have a place in digital media plans? Actually, there was a lot of discussion. So I'll ask you all at this point, just a bit of fun. If you can open up your, take out your phones, open up the browser and go to menti.com, you'll then be asked to submit a code. So if you can please submit the code 875834, then we'll be able to see what your thoughts are on this one. So I'll just give you a second to do that. And while you're doing so, I'm going to open up the results. So please know that your results are coming up here, but not for any, there's no names, so don't worry about it. I can see a couple coming through already. So we've got a few yeses here. A decent bunch that would say they're not sure, which is, yeah, I think that the point actually. Everyone seems to have a different approach when it comes to content marketing. So what it is certainly is kind of in between. One firmly in the no column there. I'm hoping that'll be better by the end of this presentation. And I'll just give it a second to see if there's any more results coming in. I hope you all appreciated the GIFs as well. I really just need dogs and cat GIFs in my life right now.
I'm trying not to vote based on my favourite GIF.
Okay, Max, it's all right. I mean, you could vote twice maybe, but it might even it out. Okay, let's see, are we any more? I'll just wait for a couple more to come in. If you've just kind of joined us on the call, we're just establishing kind of our baseline. So do we think we know what content marketing is? And you can vote on your phones at menti.com using the code across the top of the screen. I'd say that's probably all we're going to get for now. So yeah, actually there was more in the not sure column than I was expecting, but at least that means that there's even more kind of reason to have this conversation that we are today. And so if you just stay on menti.com for a moment, I'm going to take us to the next slide, and you should be able to follow along on your phones. So in your current roles, and maybe it'll only be a few of you based on the earlier piece, but are you doing anything that you would consider content marketing at the moment? Is it in your plans? Is it coming up in the future? Or kind of just not on the roadmap at all? I just let you all vote for that for a moment. Okay, a few people doing it right now. That's brilliant. Lots in their future plans. Hope you're all Doctor Who fans. No, not Doctor Who. Back to the Future fans. Okay, great. So it's 15 of you voted. A lot of you doing it in roles right now, lots in future plans. So I hope that means this then continues to be quite useful. Final question before you know, I start talking myself, but actually over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of change in circumstances. I'm sure you've all been kind of reassessing your marketing plans right now, or your talent acquisition plans, or your roles, and looking at your priorities. Where's content going? And I can see this shooting up already. A few of you seeing content as more of a priority right now. A couple it's going less, and I can understand that because there's a lot of things competing for priorities at this point in time. So I'll just give it a moment for you to all vote here. Okay, so lots of you, it's becoming more of a priority. It's really interesting. A few the same as ever, and only a couple it's moving down that list. I think we're still waiting for a couple more people to vote, so I'll just let you jump in and do that. Okay, I'm going to assume we're all there. I mean, really, there's an overwhelming kind of people have got it more of a priority right now. Lots of you doing content in your roles right now, but then a lot of you feeling not sure that you know what content marketing is. So I hope that the following presentation helps with that. And you know, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'll just jump back over to my presentation then. No more questions, so you're all off the hot seats. So we kind of kicked off with actually not many of us know what, or feel confident that we know what content marketing is at this point in time. And I think that's because with a lot of kind of marketing terms, actually it depends on your own personal experience, how you're using it, what you're doing at any point in time. So for me, my kind of experience of content marketing comes from my background, and that's the way that I look at it. So I see it as a kind of merging of journalism and marketing. I started my career, I was trained as a journalist. That's my kind of background training. I've written for kind of the likes of The Guardian and the BBC, but I've also done a lot of sports journalism. Had the opportunity to report at the London 2012 games, and then to lead an editorial team at Rio 2016, having a nice time out in Brazil. And what I saw kind of across this, and then since I've been doing many more kind of marketing roles in between, was actually it's less about kind of journalism or marketing, but it's more about the stories that are at the center of it, and even more so kind of the people that are being told and talked about in those stories. So it's really kind of storytelling coming together across both journalism and marketing. And I thought, considering that, what would be quite nice is to share my favourite story from my time at the Rio 2016 Games. Perhaps it's a story you guys might have seen in the news previously. It's something that really kind of stood out for me. So there was a kind of young woman named Yasura Mardini, and she was travelling from Syria to Europe to kind of escape the war there. she was on a boat, and that boat started to kind of sink or started to capsize. And her and her sister were both very strong swimmers already, kind of naturally at this point in time, and jumped out and actually kind of pulled the boat and the individuals in that to safety over the course of kind of 3 hours, saving their own lives, but also a lot of other people. Fast forward kind of a year after this point in time, and actually Ursula was asked to join the Rio 2016 refugee Olympic team, and was competing in Brazil on the world stage as part of the kind of first refugee Olympic team, and the only Olympic team to make up individuals from different nationalities. And it's an amazing story. So she went through such an experience, but actually there's a real sense of hope at the end. And while this story was kind of reported widely from a journalism point of view, you know, picked up by all of the international press, it also was a story that kind of translates into kind of powerful marketing as well for the Olympic movement, for the International Olympic Committee, because it sums up the Olympics kind of values and vision around hope, and the fact that kind of anyone from anywhere could compete on that stage and kind of have that opportunity. And Yassa's gone on to be a UN ambassador now, and actually to keep telling her story to try and help others and kind of encourage this. So it's stories like that, I think, that they're about people and they're about situations, and they kind of transcend, and it doesn't matter then whether it's journalism or marketing or content marketing, but it's more about the story. So that's why I think it's about the two coming together here. And like you can see in the middle here with content marketing, it's really about telling the stories. There's another couple of points I think that make content marketing what it is. So one is considering the audience's interests first. So whether that's whatever they're interested in, actually it's about thinking about what your audience wants to engage with and read, and how they're going to feel when they engage, read, or listen to or watch your content, less than what it is that you as a business or a brand wants to say. I think that audience understanding is really key. The other point I think is important to remember, especially compared to some of the other tactics we use in marketing, is that content marketing kind of gives without expectation. And by that I mean we don't necessarily expect an immediate click as a result of a piece of content, or immediate application, or if it's consumer, immediate purchase. But content marketing builds a kind of longer term relationship and engagement and connection. And it might be that some of those things happen immediately as a response, but actually it might be that someone engages with a piece of content, and 6 months down the line, that content then leads them to take an action. So at the point of sharing content, what you're trying to do is give them something without kind of an immediate expectation that that they're going to act upon that. But what you're really doing is kind of reaching out a hand and building a relationship there. So that's my take on content marketing. Be interesting to see kind of at the end if any of you disagree with that. And if you do have questions, remember you can be chucking them in the chat, and we're going to come to them at the end of this. So thinking about the roles of many of you, I know you're kind of here and you're joining from teams in talent acquisition or employer brand, maybe you're in recruiting or internal comms or marketing, but actually I think there's opportunities for content across many of those roles, and really across the whole end-to-end employee experience. So whether that is the kind of front end of awareness, so when a candidate's going, I don't know anything about you, perhaps I'm not even looking for you, you know, I don't know where to start, that very early awareness, into consideration when a candidate's interest has been piqued, when they're looking for more kind of robust information, when they're trying to make a decision about whether they want to kind of invest time and energy in your company or in your roles. And then through to, as they start to go into that kind of assessment and application process, they're trying to think, actually, is this the right company for me? They're kind of assessing you at the same time as you are them, and they're trying to get some kind of core information here. Then even if they've accepted an offer, there's often a period of kind of separation between when the offer's been made or when they come into the business, And I think keeping warm at that point is really, really important. You've put so much effort into that individual at this point of time. But also you want them to come kind of in on day one, or, you know, even into kind of week one or month one, and be really engaged and excited. So that keep warm content can actually be helping build that kind of excitement, engagement. And then when they've been in the business for a while, actually, and this is where it crosses over a lot with internal comms, there's a letting your employees become kind of advocates. So whether this is making sure that they've got all the information they need at the times that they need it, in order to understand their job and their role and where they're going to go and what opportunities are available to them. But they can also be involved in the content creation process. And we've seen kind of a lot of excitement come out of getting individual employees involved in, let's say, user-generated content, or getting them along to shoots. This builds a lot of good trust and advocacy as well. So what I want to do in this next section is actually just kind of drill down into each one of these stages. Just going to take some water. So let's take awareness first. This is the area that I see kind of most people doing content around at this point. And I think many of you will see the same. See lots of videos that kind of represent, let's say, the employer brand, lots of blogs and podcasts that are there to kind of hook in information. And I'd say it's at the beginning of this journey that we see the most kind of content marketing efforts from our friends and our clients. I think actually it's interesting that there's a lot of content kind of put in at that end, because as you start to move through this funnel, I think some of the return on investment for content can become even greater. So actually, if you're using content at the point of apply, when you're so close to having that candidate come into the business, or a keep warm to stop them from reneging upon an offer, actually the return on investment to that content is really great. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So we'll take awareness first. And like I say, right now, at this stage, the audience is feeling, I don't know you at all. So you have to think from the audience's perspective, actually, that you've got to be showing who you are as a business and a brand. And this is where you really want this to kind of reflect your employer brand, if you've got that set up, but also your visions and your values. It's a big picture of who you are. So I'm going to attempt to play this video because I think it's a great example. If there are any technical issues and you can't hear or you can't see everything, we'll be sending this around afterwards, so you'll be able to have a watch. So this is a video we did for London's Met Police, and I think it really sums up everything it is that you'd want to know about the Met Police if you had no knowledge of them at the point of seeing this video, and hooks that interest.
London, over 8.5 million people. Most don't really know us. They just know we're here, helping them sleep at night, keeping them safe, protected, away from the gangs, the drugs, the knives. But for some, for the 160,000 we arrest, they don't sleep so easy. We're the first through the door, catching the thieves, the muggers, the murderers. It can be the hardest job in London. But ask any of us why we do it, and we'll tell you we wouldn't do anything else. Because we're a team, getting it done, dealing with life, death, crime, and its victims. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Each one different to the next.
I'm going to stop it there because I think actually, even in a part of the video that really sums up what I was getting at. But it's the kind of content that draws you in and gets your kind of interest and engagement at this point, when maybe you didn't know anything beforehand, but actually you learn a lot in a very short period of time. Awareness content can also be specific to individual campaigns, or kind of lean in to reflect individual visions or values. So, for example, to celebrate 100 years of women in the Met Police, they did the 100 Years Strong campaign, and the same way, that was this kind of powerful upfront content that showed what the Met Police was really about. So That is a more serious approach, looking at actually the values of an organisation like the Met Police, and totally kind of in line with what they stand for. But you can also use this opportunity when you're first kind of gauging an audience, and actually try and instill some humour, instill some interest. Content can be funny, but really what you're aiming for it to be is be thumb stopping. And this is an example that isn't an employee brand video, although it could be. It kind of might lead you to want to work here afterwards. But actually it's a B2C video that just received kind of major viral recognition, and you may have seen it before. Michael Dubin, he came up with the idea for Dollarshaveclub. It's now a $1 billion company, but at the time he had no investment and had about $4,000 to make a simple video. So he decided to go surprise with it. And I'm going to play that for you in a second, but within 48 hours, he had 12,000 orders, and has since gone on to kind of sell his brand to Unilever. So I'd say it's a pretty successful piece of content. Again, I'm going to try playing this, and I hope this works for all of you.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
So yeah, for those of you that could see that, it's a fairly wacky video, but certainly drawing attention up front in the awareness stage. So then when you move on to consideration, at this point, the candidate is looking to understand if they really want to invest their time and apply for your company and for a specific role. So I think that's where the content can get very much more informative, where you can pull in a lot of kind of real examples about what it's like to work in a role. I'm not going to share the videos because of time, but I recommend you taking a look at the New Zealand Police Day in the Life videos on YouTube. They're fantastic. But what I think they do really well is they break it down kind of role by role. So if you're looking to join a specific role, actually you can see very easily what it's like to work in that role. If you're joining the maritime unit, there's a video there telling you about that. And something else that I'd done previously in my role in employer brand content at Accenture was focusing down onto an area of the business that needed a lot of growth. And so we looked at kind of mergers and acquisitions at Accenture, and how what were the various things that potential candidates might be asking about, and try to answer those in video form. So, you know, why would I join M&A at Accenture now? Where's the M&A kind of group at Accenture going in the future? You know, is there going to be opportunities for me to grow here? How can I develop my skills? And so there was a series here that looked to answer all those questions. So again, it's thinking about what your audience is looking for at this point in time. I think the other thing to be aware of is at this point, they may not just be looking at your employer brand content, but also at your kind of main business content. So like the Refinitiv Perspectives group here, actually your audience at this point is looking for a whole range of content, and keeping an eye on what's going out on your main corporate pages. Maybe there's useful content that you can be sharing on careers channels and with those candidates. I think another point to consider in this stage is the range of content that you share. So we're seeing a lot of interest at the moment for podcasts. A lot of people are kind of choosing this as their content medium. I personally love podcasts. And someone who I think is doing it really well is Netflix. They launched this podcast in the middle of last year. But what they've tried to do is break it down episode by episode. So if you're only interested in legal at Netflix, actually there's an episode there for you and you just listen to that. So it helps candidates kind of find their own way through the content and look at what's right for them. As they then move along into the journey and they start meeting with your kind of recruiters or line managers who are hiring, now what we really want them to do is go, I want this offer and I'm going to accept. Or understand the role enough to know if they're not right and deselect out. I think in the current climate, this is even more important as the kind of assessments are going virtual with video interviews or kind of phone interviews. So how can you add content to this stage and actually make a real experience with the candidate at this point? And some things that we've been looking at and seeing that I think work really well include, for example, like 360 or virtual office tours, bringing the environment to them, even if they can't go there right now. Meet the team videos to try and introduce the people that are working there. Kind of follow up content around the role. So, you know, if their line managers have the conversation in an interview, actually you can follow up with specific, or this alludes to what we discussed, or this is what you're interested about. So I think in this stage here, it's about making a kind of content bank that you can share with those who are in recruiting roles that they can lean into and help them have those personal conversations. I think another thing you can do is kind of encourage and guide those kind of interviewers to actually maybe do some quick kind of simple iPhone user-generated style content themselves. So, for example, a personal thank you video, just very easy after some of the kind of interviews of, you know, thank you for coming, especially if it is a video interview format right now. I think that will be quite beneficial. As we move into keep warm and your candidates kind of received an offer and hopefully accepted it, we want them to feel kind of ready to start and have built up their excitement and interest, and that can continue into then the onboarding process. I think the opportunity here, because you know the candidate's going to be joining the business, actually you can share something quite kind of unique with them and create a dialogue. So maybe that's sharing some of your learning and development content, maybe that's providing access to proprietary research. You could do more introductions to other people in the team that they haven't met at this point, provide hints and tips, advice, kind of showcase your culture, perhaps introduce them to your diversity inclusion networks. So there's lots of options to start creating a kind of experience and dialogue at this point. When they're then kind of in the business as employees, what we obviously want them to feel is continually engaged and becoming kind of passionate advocates for the business. So I think this is where maybe employee brand really interacts with internal comms, and it's really about the 360 employee experience. So we had one client who I think is a great example of this, and they may be on the call, I'm not sure today. But Refinitiv, we divested from Thomson Reuters a year or so ago, and we got involved with them to kind of shape and activate their employee brand. And what was really important here was actually the employees feeling part of this new organization and feeling engaged. So there was a kind of 4-country content creation kind of activity with photos and video shoots where lots of people got involved. And what we saw as a result was a lot of excitement build up on social media. So the individuals were sharing kind of behind the scenes shots. They were calling out to each other on social, saying how great it was to see their colleague or their friend or someone that they respected and admired featured as part of this. They were kind of promoting the roles and the links on their own social networks. And so really they became these kind of excited, engaged advocates. It's because they felt part of and included in the process. And just a quote here from Daniel. So he said, having willing employees eager to become part of our EVP campaign was a massive win for us, because we know that our employees are one of our greatest assets when it comes to social media, marketing and branding. They become the advocates of our business. When our employees share our campaign, it can become more trusted and authentic. So I think that also comes back to this trusting of peers, and the more you can get your employees to be shouting about you, get them involved in your content, and then kind of excited to be advocates for the business, the more you're going to be trusted as a brand in the business. So that was really looking kind of end to end on the employee experience. But I'm conscious that right now it's such an interesting time, and in many ways, and we're all adjusting to the new normal. Here we are on a webinar working from home. But what we're seeing from a marketing point, and these the kind of reporting and stats analysis on this is changing day by day. But what we're seeing more of is that the demand for kind of helpful, considerate, thought through content has never been greater. Like I say, literally every day you can see different stats come up on this, and it's interesting to follow. But one that stood out for me recently is that LinkedIn engagement and activity is up 55% the last 3 weeks. And LinkedIn's always been a powerful channel to be putting out content when you're looking for kind of employer brand or engaging with candidates or employees. But right now it's even more so. But also across all social media channels, we're seeing kind of usage across all demographics rising substantially. That being said, I think the kind of helpful, considered, nuanced approach to content isn't something that's new. And actually, even before kind of we had COVID-19 and the environment we're in now, what we were seeing in research was that there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, and that trust in brands is falling. And so actually brands that are seen as only selling and not kind of giving experiences were suffering as a result. And so really it's about providing content that feels good. So this has been around for some time now, but I think is amplified by the current circumstances. So if you're looking to create content at this kind of moment in time, I think there's a couple of key things to have in mind. And it all comes back to what we said at the start about making sure you're thinking of your audience's interests first, and that you're thinking about how they're feeling at any point in time. So, right now, and I'm sure we're all feeling it ourselves, people are feeling worried, bored, maybe frustrated, possibly scared. They've got a lot going on. And so more than ever, I think your content should be looking to do one of the following. Should be looking to do good, to make people feel good, to inform or to be helpful, but also to be personal and truthful. So to not come across as, sales content or inauthentic content. Actually, it's really important that this comes across as personal. And I do think all of these principles actually carry for any point in time when it comes to content, but it's even more important right now. I think for those of us looking at employer brand content or internal comms content, actually, this is true and kind of more important than ever. People want to hear from their peers right now. They want to have this sense of connection. And I think content is the way of doing that. And again, you can be using your employees as a voice for these powerful stories, sharing kind of good news stories from your business, and having your employees as kind of the advocates for that. So I've talked about end-to-end employee content. I've talked about there being a lot of opportunities there. I've talked about how we should be kind of considerate of the time. What many of you might be asking, and because I know you've already got so many priorities going on kind of in your roles, is actually kind of where do I start? That sounds like a lot. And I think we've had to think about this at Tonic, and we've tried to really focus in on kind of the essential steps, and got a bit of a kind of circular approach to that here. So what I would recommend is actually don't start from like a standing start. Try and kind of help yourself out and have a look at the existing content that's already been put out from your business over the years, or that perhaps has been kind of created and edited but never gone live. I think we've all got content like that in our business that sits around. And just to kind of audit and assess. So is there content there that feels redundant, obsolete, trivial? So content that you can just get rid of, you say that's not right anymore. But actually there may be more content that you imagine that you can go, oh, with a slight tweak, with a bit of an edit, I can re-release this, I could reposition this, I could take some of the core elements and push this out again. And again, I think right now when we're not likely to be doing kind of big production video shoots in, you know, out and about in locations, actually re-editing existing kind of video works really well. Exactly the same if it's written content. Maybe you don't have as much opportunities to interview your people right now because they've got other priorities, but you can find old content and re-edit that. I think this audit and assess phase sits kind of alongside strategy and plan phase. So we've talked throughout about the importance of understanding your audience and their interest. And I think that's always where you've got to start. So understanding your target audience personas, you know, who they are, what do they care about, what are they likely to be interested in. If you're looking at the full kind of end-to-end employee experience, actually, how does their feelings and engagement and interests change as they go along that experience? And if you understand what it is they're looking for, you can then start to create that content that meets and answers those considerations. Like the M&A content I mentioned, where we looked to go, what are our candidates likely concerned or thinking about here? How can we answer that in content? So starting with your target audience, but then also obviously matching against your business objectives and some key kind of KPIs, what you're looking to achieve with this. I know we all need to kind of prove return on investment in the business and the spend that you're putting into this. So matching those two things up side by side. And I think you can go to the point of each individual piece of content. What do I want to achieve with this? Because then when you come through the loop to measure and optimize this, you know if it's working or not, you know what you're auditing against, and that will help you out in the long run. Once you've done this and you've mapped out, this is all the content I've got right now that I could reuse, this is everything my audience is looking for, actually you may then identify some very clear gaps or areas of priority and focus. And I think that comes into your content calendar, your content plan. And I would always recommend having a kind of upfront content production plan, because then when you get into the create stage, you can help yourself out with some efficiencies of scale. Maybe you want to batch up all of your video editing or do all of your employee interviews for one subject in one period of time. And it will make it easier for you to kind of manage alongside the rest of your time and your priorities, but also work better in terms of budget and investment. Once that's out there, obviously you want to measure and optimize against those objectives and KPIs that you set yourself. And I think content, often more than other things we do in marketing, really can be a trial and error thing. But as long as you're looking for it, actually you can very quickly change if something isn't working. You can very quickly kind of re-release and reposition that content, kind of taking you back around the circle, so that actually you're continuing to build upon yourself. So I guess that's my kind of top tips for how we approach content. I think we're doing okay on time, which is brilliant. So a takeaway today, if you look at your end-to-end of your employee experience, are there gaps along that where you could add in additional content? So just reminding you of this kind of formula here. Actually, do you have a lot of current content or activity maybe at the consideration stage, but nothing in keep warm? Right now, when we're kind of juggling so many things, trying to work out where along this that you want to prioritize, I think that's a good place to be. So you'll be receiving this presentation after the call today, and you can, you know, take this and have a look at where maybe you've got some gaps there that you want to focus on. I think the second thing to take away is actually, right now in the kind of current situation, current environment, where can you be creating additional connections with your content? Where can you be kind of doing good or making people feel good? Where can you be maybe making up for the fact that you've only been able to have a telephone interview with someone by making them feel kind of valued and thanked with a piece of content. So I think there's, you know, an added value that we can add right now. And so that's me. I really appreciate you all taking the time today and kind of joining in and listening to me. And so I'd love to be available should anyone who's joined the call today want to kind of focus in and do a bit of consultation. Just 20, 30 minutes, virtual coffee break, and I'd be happy to kind of talk about any, you know, specific areas of content that you're looking to work on, whether you've identified that you need help at the apply stage, or whether you're just trying to look at how maybe you change your content for the current circumstances that we're in. You can contact me on my email address there, and I promise I'll be available for this.